Hey everybody, this is Sastry. Thanks to all my supporters and viewers for taking the time to watch my videos. In this video, I'd like to talk about comics because I'm a big comic fan, and I'd like to talk about something specific in the lifting of Thor's hammer by the Incredible Hulk in the latest issue of the Indestructible Hulk, number 6. Now, those of you who are long-time comic fans know that basically only someone who is worthy is allowed to pick up the hammer of Thor. And this video just rounded up, basically from memory and not too much research, a little research on most of the people who have lifted Thor's hammer. Welcome your comments, and also welcome, your observations, and hope you enjoy it. Here's a quick synopsis, because I don't want to be give it too much away, just in case you haven't read the book. Bruce Banner goes into the land of the Frost Giants, where he encounters the mighty Thor. They're set upon by a bunch of Frost Giants, so Thor is knocked for a loop, and leaving his hammer behind. And Bruce Banner turns into the Hulk, enlists the help of Mjolnir, and basically picks up the hammer. Now look, I'm one of the biggest Hulk fans around, but even I think the Hulk should not be able to pick up Thor's hammer or just under about any circumstances. But also, I'd like to note that in this issue there are a lot of things that are a little strange, a little fishy, and I'm not going to give them away because I'd like you to just buy the book and read it yourself. But there are some things a little fishy about what's going on, and when you read the issue, you'll see them for yourself, and you'll quickly notice them if you're a long-time comic fan. And these also may contribute to why the Hulk was able to do this, but I'm not really going to go into that. What I really want to do with this video is just make a quick history of other people who have been able to pick up Thor's hammer. So I'm just going to start going over the names and the people right now. I also did my best to put references to the issues where the incidents occurred. So just in case you want to read the books for yourself, you can try to find them and check them out. First individual I'd like to start with is not really individual as much as a suit of armor called the Destroyer, created by Odin to face the Celestials. It makes sense that he's able to pick up the hammer since he is created by Odin. It's pretty much created to be almost indestructible. So I have no problem with him being able to pick up the hammer. Next I put up, and this is not in chronological order of handling of Mjolnir, is of the Red Hulk. Well, basically he jumps into the vacuum of space, well, not quite the vacuum, near orbit, I guess, and where the air is really thin and there's no gravity, he's able to take Mjolnir out of Thor's hand and then beat the crap out of Thor with his own hammer, which number one I think is nonsense, because I don't think the hammer should be able to strike Thor. Ghost Rider tried that a couple of decades ago and it didn't work. And just because they're in zero gravity, I just don't think, because of the magical properties of the hammer, that anybody who's not worthy should be able to handle the hammer, including the Red Hulk. I guess the precedence of this was set by this Avengers issue when Thor's hammer was in space and Iron Man was near it, and he floated over it and grabbed it, and I guess I gave license for everybody to kind of run with it, because you're not really lifting it if you're not dealing with gravity. Still, I understand where they're coming from, but I still think it's nonsense because of the mystical qualities of the hammer. Next up, we have Diana from the DC Universe, Wonder Woman. I don't have too much of a problem with her being able to pick up the hammer because she is pretty honorable. Next up, we have Beta Ray Bill, which is at the time probably one of the biggest shocks in comics. To have another cat pick up Thor's hammer. Again, Bill is very honorable. Do I think, and the kind of way they did is kind of strange, because it was actually in stick form, then he hits it against the wall, and the stick, the walking cane of Downblade becomes a hammer of Thor in his hand. So it more like he made it transform in his hand than him actually picking up. So they did it in a very roundabout way, but at the same time he was still able to hold Mjolnir. It's not like it fell to the floor. But the fact he's able to make it transform at all, I did find kind of strange. And I know he later fought Thor and quote unquote supposed to be beating fair and square for the hammer, and then Odin gave him his own hammer named Stormbreaker. But in my opinion, Thor really didn't lose that fight. But you can go check out the series from Thor, the first Thor volume, issues 337 to 339. Next up, we have Steve Rogers, Captain America. Thor gets into a bit of trouble. He gets piled on by a bunch of bad guys. Cap is free. He's able to reach the hammer, and he's able to pick it up and toss it to Thor. I had no problem with Captain America being able to pick up the hammer because, as far as honorable guys go, he's probably among the most honorable. And it was a time of desperation also. So I don't have any problem with Cap being able to do that. And then next up we have Red Norvell, which is one of the stranger stories in Thor history. But a camera crew goes to Asgard, and among them is this guy named Red Norvell. Loki, being Loki, starting trouble. Leads Red Norvell to put on Thor's belt of strength as well as his gauntlet of power. And what the gauntlet of power was originally for was so that a young Thor who couldn't really handle Mjolnir could pick up and handle Mjolnir. So what happens? Red Norvell picks up, puts on all his armor with the gauntlet of power, and guess what? He's able to pick up Mjolnir. That one's a bit touch and go with me because Red Norvell, as a person, he's not worthy at all. But I guess with all the magical properties of the gauntlet, which Odin gave Thor to help him out originally handling the hammer, I guess he was able to pick up the hammer. I thought it was a bit of a stretch, but hey, it's comic books. Next up, we have Dargo. Dargo's from a future timeline where the hammer of Thor was residing on the Earth, and it was being worshipped by a cult of, I guess, Thor worshippers, and they would periodically try to find someone who was able to pick up the hammer and become Thor and help solve their problems, what have you. Dargo is not a believer. He goes to the ceremony, sees that no one's able to pick it up, and Loki comes to this timeline seeking the hammer, and he sends out his minions to go find the hammer, and they start causing trouble, beating people up, and Dargo gets caught up in the middle of it. He needs a weapon. Guess what he chooses? Yep, the hammer of Thor, and guess what? He's worthy to pick it up, and starts kicking Troll behind. But he does have problems controlling the hammer because the hammer realizes or somehow knows that this is not the true Thor, so it's always trying to get away from him, which I thought was a pretty nice twist. But still, he was able to pick up the hammer and manipulate and control it, and ultimately Loki never gets his hand on the hammer. Not a big fan of this character Thor, or the way he's able to pick up Thor's hammer, but hey. Next up, we have Eric Masterson. Eric Masterson gets his hand on the cane of Thor, or the cane/hammer of Thor, but in cane form, after Thor gets taken away from apparently killing Loki. And so what happens is, Heimdall takes away Thor and leaves the cane behind. Eric Masterson gets pissed off, picks up the cane, hits it against a chimney, and boom, transforms into the mighty Thor. He's supposed to be like the everyday man's Thor, Thor of the common people, so to speak. I mean, this timeline was pretty interesting. As most comic fans know, he goes on to become Thunderstrike, and Thunderstrike gets killed. But he was a pretty interesting run, and Eric Masterson's a likable guy. Worthy to pick up the hammer of Thor? I don't really think so, but hey, I still enjoy reading the comic line. Next up, we have one of the strangest incidents of Thor's hammer being picked up. This is by Krow, Lord of the Deviants. Basically, Cersei, the Eternal, turns into a copy of Thor, and she magically transforms the hammer of Thor. So she and Krow are able to pick it up. And then, as you see in the comics there, Don Blake, who is really Thor, is able to jump on Krow, overpower him, and make the cane hit the ground and turn into the real Thor. And I guess during that whole thing, the hammer becomes naturally what it was before, and again, nobody else is ever able to pick it up besides Thor. Now here we have Woden, son of Thor. It makes sense. I guess he's able to pick up the hammer because it's, if he has the bloodline and is worthy enough, he can, follow in his dad's footsteps. But most of you may know that Woden is actually the name of Odin in Norse mythology. And then you have Manji, which is the real son of Thor in Norse mythology. And this is from another timeline as well. And he's able to pick up the hammer of Thor. Of course, I guess because he's the son of Thor, and if he behaves himself and acts worthy, he can do what his dad did. Next, we have Zeus, king of the Olympian gods. Now, the funny thing is, Zeus is only able to hold a hammer momentarily. He can't keep it from Thor. Unlike all these other jokers who are actually able to pick it up, Zeus is bound by the enchantment, even though he's Odin's equal in power. I found that kind of humorous. So many other people are able to pick it up for longer periods of time, and Zeus himself can only momentarily hold a hammer. But, that's consistent with the enchantment. And next up we have Superman from the DC Universe during the JLA versus Avengers series, issue 4. Basically getting to the final stages of the battle with Kronos, the supervillain of the series. Thor lends Superman the hammer because Superman is going to need all the help he can get. And, he uses it, to the best of his ability to help him, bring the battle home. Now, you can see that Superman's only able to lift the hammer temporarily, only in great times of trouble, and because Thor lent it to him, which I thought was pretty interesting, because, Superman is one of the most honorable characters around, but even he can't pick it up whenever he wants to. Here we have a pick up the hammer free for all in the Conan versus Thor comic. Basically, Thor is transported into Hyborian age, where he meets the main god of that era, Crom. Crom takes the hammer away from Thor because he gives Thor the knowledge of who he is. Because Thor, when he got back into that age, he forgot who he was and where he came from, and asked Crom for help. Crom said, "All right, as a token of your appreciation and you're giving up your power, give me that hammer." Thor says no. Crom says, "Yeah, right." Takes the hammer and then throws it into the depths of the earth. Thor, one of the chief villains of that age, then witnesses this and sends one of his messengers to go pick up the hammer. And guess what? The messenger is able to pick up the hammer too. Again, because Thor is not in the center of his power. He's not the height of his power, and he doesn't exist yet. Then we also see that Thor himself is able to pick up the hammer. Later in the issue, Thor does die, and before dying, he tells Conan, take this hammer to Crom as a symbol of how gods are supposed to help people and not cause trouble, and not be mean. So guess what? Thor is dead, so Conan is able to handle the hammer, and he goes off on his journey to give the hammer to Crom. Alright, sorry this video was so long. I really didn't intend it to be on this long, but I just felt that a lot of the circumstances needed some narration and a little bit of explanation. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll try to put out more comic related videos soon, and take care.